All right, we're going to turn to our first guest. I am so excited. She is consistently rated as one of the most innovative governors in America, one of its most popular. And she has shown time and again that you can use state rights to solve problems that the federal government in Washington seems to fumble. Joining us from the great state of South Dakota is Governor Kristi Noem. Governor, great to have you on.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you for inviting me. It's wonderful to be with you.
We love talking to you because so many people walk around this city telling us the things they can't do. But in South Dakota, you always are finding things that you can accomplish. Your exercise of state rights is really a model. You can solve geopolitical issues with China. You can deal with anti-Semitism meanwhile Washington fumbles it. A big one today, right? You're going to be signing some historic legislation to take on the scourge of anti-Semitism.
Yeah, we actually did that just a couple of hours ago. We signed a bill that defined what anti-Semitism was. It gave powerful examples that we can use in litigation and in court to make sure that hate crimes stop, not just in South Dakota, but this will be used as model legislation in many other states because it is written so strong and it was unified within the Jewish community, within the groups that have always stood strong with Israel, and it is something that we will use throughout the United States of America to make sure that anti-Semitism is stopped. I think all of us were horrified by what happened on October 7th, and what I was even more horrified about after that was the pro-Hamas support that some uneducated people in this country endorsed and wrapped their arms around. So we're going to use this as an opportunity not just to stop hate crimes, but to stand with our Israel allies and to also make sure that we're pushing back on terrorist organizations who want to destroy not just Israel, but also the United States of America.
Yeah, so important.
Yeah. And some people might not realize this, but South Dakota's Jewish population has been there for nearly 200 years. They came during the gold rush and settled in Deadwood. So a very important part of South Dakota's culture and community. I want to switch gears to China because you have been so fierce in combating from a state capacity China's influence in the United States with respect to the purchase of farmland, but also over on social media. And the Biden campaign announced that they are going to be using TikTok to a pretty great degree as far as their campaign. You banned it for statewide employees on their devices. What kind of message does it send that the Biden campaign is willing to be vulnerable on a platform like TikTok?
Well, you referenced it earlier when you were talking about Hunter Biden. The guy has no gifts or skills or talents, yet he was selling access to his father and doing it to China. That is exactly what TikTok is selling people's information, data, and access to China. And Biden is facilitating it through his campaign. There's a different set of rules for Joe Biden, apparently, than the rest of the American people, because after South Dakota was the first state in the country to ban TikTok, dozens of other states followed our lead. The federal government even followed our lead and banned it on federal devices. And yet Joe Biden says, no, still good enough for me. We're going to continue to partner with China, and all they want to do is to destroy our country. So this will mark the 30th year that I have worked on China policy, which has been a long time. But I have systematically watched China steal our intellectual property. They have manipulated their currency. They have punished us with trade agreements and regulations. They've come in and purchased our fertilizer and chemical companies, our processing systems. Now they're stealing our data and information and spying on us, and then crossing our southern border to infiltrate us with military-aged men that are here only to damage us. Their goal is to control the world and be the strongest power, and the only way they can do that is by taking down America. Make no mistake, the people in this country need to understand that Joe Biden is facilitating that by continuing to use TikTok, and when he does it, to try to win elections.
Yeah, so important. I think everywhere I go, I get this question, Governor. Why are so many military-age Chinese men coming across the border? They can't leave their country unless their country gives them an exit visa, so their country knows where they're going. Do you have any intelligence, has anything, the state police or any of the apparatus that you have, your Homeland Security experts, any explanation for what their motive is? What are they doing coming into the country in such historic numbers?
They are coming here not just with permission, they are coming here with a mission from their government. They are CCP members that are told to come and infiltrate the United States of America to collect data and information. In fact, just this summer, we knew and had warnings from the State Department that there was going to be spies in South Dakota that were here to steal our genetics, on our seeds and our agricultural commodities, and on other information on how we grow our food in this country. And that's just in one industry. We know that they are sending these individuals here to steal our way of life so that they can control it, and we become dependent on them. And when they control our food, when they control our pharmaceutical supply, which they already do, when their military is stronger than ours, which it is getting there, and when they control our debt, which they are doing by buying our treasury bonds, boy, it is a scary time unless we get a president in that White House that really stands up and understands the threat that China is and doesn't sell access like Joe Biden does through his son, Hunter.
So important.
Governor, we referenced this a moment ago, but it's not just China. You also signed a new bill on Monday, I believe, that bans China, Russia, Venezuela, Cuba, North Korea, and Iran from buying agricultural land in your state. I imagine that frees up a lot of land for purchase for South Dakotans, which sounds like a good thing to me.
It does, and it's important that we don't have neighbors that hate us. You know, and in South Dakota in particular, we have Ellsworth Air Force Base. So Ellsworth Air Force Base is the home of our B-1 bombers. Our MQ-9 Reaper drones operate out of there, and it is going to be the first base in the United States of America where the B-21s will be established. That is the platform that will protect our country for the next 50 years. And all of our allies that we need to support and all of our strategic assets will need to be located in the center of this country to respond to the threats that we have. So Ellsworth is the key to the United States' success and security, and we're going to make sure that we don't have China buying land next to Ellsworth or in our state, and that we know who those neighbors are and that they support our national security interests. So that bill was incredibly innovative. We had broad support between ag groups, but also business groups, legislators, and got that signed into law as well. And I believe other states will be looking at that to make sure that we don't have China continuing to buy up land inside of our country. Lord knows that they never allow us to come over there and buy up their land.
Yeah, exactly. There's no reciprocity whatsoever. Governor, you mentioned the Biden family. A few years ago, Joe Biden looked in the camera in 2020 and said, my family didn't get any money from China. Donald Trump's lying. We now know that isn't true. It's $8 million at least that they got from Chinese interests. And the things they were doing were like helping them try to get energy assets on our soil and take it over to China. What message does it send to China that the current president has so much financial interest or had so much financial interest in Beijing?
That they own him. That China owns our president. And we knew he was lying. Now we have proof. He should be held accountable to that. And honestly, the consequences for that action and the proof of those emails and documents, he should be held accountable to that even before this election. But the American people need to open up their eyes and recognize that they have a president that is not putting them first. He's putting a communist party ahead of them, and he's fundamentally trying to remake this country through an invasion over our southern border and by selling out to the Chinese government.
Real quickly, we're going to hit a commercial break, but do you support impeachment? Do you think there's enough evidence to impeach Joe Biden?
I'm going to look at these documents, but if these documents are valid and if they appear to be, absolutely, that is grounds to open up these kinds of hearings.
Yeah, very good. Governor,
I have another question about that, but it's a longer one, so I'll catch it on the other side. I'm going to ask a juicy question before we go, though, because it's fast. You were number 2 in the straw poll. You tied with Vivek Ramaswamy for the VP role. What would you say if he asked?
Well, in my book, I always say I'm number 1, he's number 2. So, but no, I'm kidding. That was wonderful to see that kind of support. But I want President Trump to pick a vice president that will help him win. I'll do whatever I can. But we need him back in the White House because we need to make America great again. Enough is enough.
Well, it's a great honor to see what CPAC said about you. It's well earned. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. You've graciously agreed to stick around for another block, Governor. We're going to take you up on that. We'll take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back with more with our exclusive interview with Governor Kristi Noem right after this.
Welcome back, America. South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem is going to rejoin us to dive back into where we left off before the commercial break. But I'm hoping to get a little spoiler of her upcoming book coming out May 7th. It's titled No Going Back, The Truth on What's Wrong with Politics and How We Move America Forward. So we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But Governor Noem, thank you so much for sticking with us. I want to talk about election integrity because we are fresh off of Super Tuesday yesterday. Obviously, President Trump just wiping the floor. It was a near sweep with the exception, of course, of Vermont, but he is the de facto nominee for the Republican Party now. There are a number of counties across America who have opted out of the Zuckerbucks nonprofit assistance. So nice of them to offer their help in these counties, but they said no thank you, very wisely so, I think. You are one of those governors who you are innovative, you are industrious, you think outside of the box with respect to election integrity going into November. What would you grade South Dakota's election integrity to be right now?
I would give us an A. We definitely banned private money funding our elections. Zuck Bucks was a bill that I brought forward and we passed last year during legislative session to ensure that that didn't happen. We banned drop boxes in the state of South Dakota. You have to use your driver's license, voter ID in order to vote. You vote on or before Election Day. And we have a lot of integrity in our system. Poll watchers and people that are there in a very transparent process. I think every state should follow our model. That's what I've been concerned about, is that we saw in 2020 what a lot of these states did by governors writing executive orders because of an emergency situation, that they were allowed to ignore election law. So our election laws are incredibly important. Our Secretary of States, who are our chief election officers, are incredibly important. We need to be preparing right now for this fall to make sure that each of these states, and especially those states where we know we have liberal governors, that they are going to follow their election laws, and that we are continuing as conservatives and as Republicans to make sure that we're using every tool available to us to make sure that our people get out and vote and that we get the chance to get that vote counted.
Yeah, so important. I don't know if you had a chance to see it, but on Monday, I believe it was, the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland, actually told a church full of churchgoers that I'm going to try to get rid of voter ID. I think voter ID is discriminatory, an impediment to voting. 80% of Americans support it. When they implemented it in Georgia and they demagogued on it, more people ended up voting than ever before because they felt that the election was secure. What does it say when the Attorney General is not only disconnected from what Americans want, but actually thinks that just showing an ID for the most precious right we have in this country is somehow an impediment?
Well, he is a horrible attorney general. So number one, if we could get a better attorney general, that would be fantastic. But so what he says is specifically said so that they can manipulate the election. Voter ID is incredibly important to make sure that that person is counted, that that one person gets one vote and that they're not double counted. And even what that ID is and how it's utilized is incredibly important, that it's verified, that it's something that's recognized, that we can ensure that that individual is who they say they are. So I thought that was shameful. I don't think he should even be allowed to continue in a position like that with that type of an opinion. And I hope none of our Secretary of States follow that opinion or our Attorney Generals when they're going forward and looking at this next election.
And I think it's pretty insulting to make comments like that. It's the bigotry of low expectations that people can't obtain an ID, which is one of the easiest things that you can do, and it's required to do practically anything else. I want to stay down in Georgia, though, and talk to you about what happened there last weekend with Lake and Riley. The governor of that city, of Athens, Georgia, Kelly Girtz, gave a number of press conferences, and one of the things that he said that I think was also insulting was that criminality is not connected to illegal immigration. You now have this administration referring to illegal aliens, folks breaking our laws coming into this country as newcomers. I don't want to get into the minds of people who vote Democrat or liberal or whatever. I can't speak to what they say, but I just can't wrap my brain around that not being insulting to practically every American.
It's every American, but think about that poor family. Think of Lakin's poor family hearing someone actually say that. They lost their dear, precious child, and their heart is broken forever. And obviously, criminality is tied to this illegal immigration. All criminality should be dealt with. But we know for a fact, and press reports have openly given us the facts for over a year and a half, that countries such as Venezuela are emptying out their prisons. They're emptying out their mental institutions. And they're taking their responsibilities of people that they have to care for and be responsible for, and they're saying, go to America. The border is open. Go there and be their problem, their responsibility. And so we know that we are not just getting people who are listed on the known terrorist watch list. We know that we're getting people from China and from Cuba and from North Korea, but we're also getting individuals from all other dozens of countries that are not good actors, that are their biggest societal problems are coming to America because of the situation that we have at the border. So I have deployed my National Guard now to the southern border 5 different times. I was the first governor in the country to deploy National Guard with a recognition that it was a war zone. And this time the Guard that will be going will be building a wall. I asked Governor Abbott exactly, specifically what type of help that he needed. And he said, you know, what happened was that the federal government challenged us because they saw we actually had constructed a barrier that was working, that even these military-aged men could not get across, and that's when they sued us to take it down. So I said, well, Let me send you some engineers that know how to build this, build it as fast as possible, and we can work with you to even get it across private ground where landowners are in agreement. And let's close up as much as that border as possible. And where we do see open places where we still have people crossing that border, we'll know it's because Democrats are allowing it to happen, but we'll secure as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, what a great mission, such an important one. Governor, I want to ask you about your new book. Your last book was a wonderful memoir. We got to understand how you got into politics, what are the values that drive you. This one has a very provocative title, No Going Back. Tell us why you wrote this and why it's so important to you.
You know, John, this one's a little unfiltered, so I think you're going to want to read it.
I'm all in.
Sometimes, I think that a lot of people really need to know, and what I found in America too is that a lot of people keep saying, they want to go back to the good old days of politics where everybody got along and there was no arguing. And my argument is that Trump broke politics. We're not going back. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing because he allowed people to go out and to speak the truth, to talk about the swamp, and to do it in a way that was very honest and genuine, and it's resonating with the American people. So let's take that and use that as a tool to get American people on board and voting and understanding conservative policies in a way that they never have before. It's almost a to-do book for the common citizen of who thinks that their vote doesn't matter, that what they do doesn't matter. They will read every single chapter and see a couple of quotes and some instructions and some stories that they've never heard before on politics of people that they know very well and understand really what the swamp is, what the shadow government is, and then what they can do to make a difference to really turn this country around. So we're not going back to the good old days of Mitt Romney and the Cheneys, and that's a good thing. We should celebrate that, and then here's what we could do to continue to build on the success that President Trump first brought us.
Important.
Fantastic. And I want to stay on that because I know you referred to what happened last night as boring because I think most of us expected what happened last night to happen. But over on some of the legacy media channels, they not only were apoplectic, but I think that they were truly shocked that President Trump did so well in these states. And they kept remarking about how the transformation of the Republican Party is complete as of last night. And it just seems like year after year, cycle after cycle, Trump victory after Trump victory, they still don't understand the American people, do they?
No, they don't. And that's one of the things I talk about in the book, is that most of the time when you get a politician that is going to announce that they're going to run for elected office, the first thing they go out is they go find a barn, or they go get a hay bale, or they put on some overalls and stand there and act like they're just like one of you. And I said, when President Trump announced that he was running for president, he came down a golden escalator. Like, who does that? We have like 2 escalators in the entire state of South Dakota. So most of my population cannot relate on their day-to-day business, what using an escalator is. But he did that because that's who he is. He was genuine. He embraced who he is and was honest about it. And he doesn't think he's better than anybody else. He doesn't think that he's better than the truck driver or the farmer or the housewife that is raising kids and raising our future generation. And that's the difference between him and the politicians that we've had for decades, is that they try to act like they are like you, but they think they're better. President Trump doesn't think he's better than you. He's one of you, and he's going to fight for you.
He's just real, as are you, Governor. We love having you on. We love your last book. Can't wait to read the next book. Everybody go out and get it. It comes out May 7th. Governor Kristi Noem, it's always an honor to have you here, and we'll have you back on again very soon. All right, everybody, stick around. Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson joins us next to talk about John's breaking news and a whole lot of other stuff.